Hello, YouTube world. My name is Jeremiah, and if you're watching this, you either know me personally or you've seen comments that I've made on Instagram or other places and about health, and you found this YouTube page. I initially started the Life Chosen to help men, and I was actually going to start and run a full course for groups of men. But at this point in the game, I have pulled my lens back on that, and I have shifted my focus a little bit, even before actually launching my own program, which I do have already prepared. And the reason is this. And I'm going to in this video, I have a list of all of the health conditions that I've recovered from, and emotional and some spiritual issues that I have resolved. And the reason why I'm not going to do a full-on course, number one, the market is saturated with people who have courses. It has been my experience that even with these courses, at the base line of everything that I learned, in my physical healing and in my journey, emotional awareness and emotional healing is at the forefront of any kind of healing. And this is the reason why. For people who grew up in emotionally abusive homes and physically abusive homes and sexually abusive homes and spiritually abusive homes, there is a limitation that children grow up with in regards to an emotional spectrum. In other words, we have a very limited emotional range. And usually it's based on someone else's emotions, and most of the emotions would be considered more negative. And it's been my experience that as I have expanded my emotional capabilities, I've tapped into my imagination. And that's where we really learn how to heal. And it's interesting that we have in society today, through religion, through media, through education, through social groups, we have a lot of limitations on, perceived limitations on what we're capable of, and what we're capable of, especially when it comes to our imaginative abilities. And some of you may be listening to this thinking, what in the hell is he talking about, and what does this have to do with healing? Well, I can tell you that 2 years ago, I couldn't have explained this. And much of what I understand now to be like my daily life, it seems so cliche if I were to go back in time and look forward to now. But my reality has changed, and with that has come a lot of wholeness and health and well-being. And my old self, even just 2 years ago, couldn't have fully comprehended who I am today and what I experience today in my physical body and health and relationships, in my sex life, in my spiritual life, in every aspect of my life. So the primary focus of this video today is just to basically give a laundry list of the physical and emotional issues that I was dealing with. So if this video intrigues you, if you have some of these issues, first of all, I want to encourage people to know that if you feel like you are meant to heal and like healing is possible for you, I did feel that way several years ago and most of my life, then healing is meant for you. I felt like I was supposed to heal. I felt, even as a child, looking around at family members who had illnesses that were related to trauma, I felt like they were related to trauma. Their illnesses were related to trauma. And even if you look now in media, you look at different celebrities. There's a lot of celebrities who, even recently, who have experienced either significant grief or trauma, and they have illnesses that follow. That's because as human beings, we're meant to live a full and enriched life. We're not meant to live in limitations. And when we do live in emotional limitations, it will affect our physical body, our mental health. It will affect our spiritual health. So with that, I'm going to start just giving my laundry list of physical issues that I had. I had neuropathy in my arms, hands, feet, legs, and hips. So I had a numbness, a numbing sensation. Um, I had sciatica. I had hip pain. I was type 2 diabetic that I was able to manage with diet. Was able to manage with diet. A lot of the symptoms I had were consistent with early onset dementia. I would forget what I was saying mid-sentence in the middle of a conversation. I had a very poor short-term memory. I asked the same questions repeatedly to the point that it was very annoying. I had low testosterone, and I took testosterone replacement therapy for that. I had loss of smell and taste. I had poor balance. I would stand in the shower, and if I closed my eyes to rinse the shampoo out of my hair, I would fall over. I had fatty liver, also known as non-alcoholic cirrhosis. I had severe diverticulitis, and I had digestive issues since around 5 years old. Acid reflux, loss of muscle mass, which was just a kind of a symptom of just my overall well-being. Joint pain, and I'm sure that if I'd have gone to the doctor like other family members, they would have given me the diagnosis of arthritis. And again, a lot of the issues I had, the health issues I had, were autoimmune related. I had tremors in my hands when, like if I just held my hands steady, it would shake. It was annoying, and I couldn't control it. I had a lot of skin issues. I had skin tags that are consistent with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. I had a lot of skin rashes. I had rashes, especially on my face. I had one right here by my nose, which I have a little bit of acne right now. But I had patches of my skin it was like rosacea type or eczema type skin issues. I had an enlarged and painful prostate. I had pain in my rectum, and this, whatever. It is what it is. I was very anal retentive, and I had as a child, I saw a lot of doctors, and I was probed a lot, and I had a lot of rectal exams, and there was a lot of tension in my pelvic floor, and it was painful. And this is kind of a caveat. Sexually, I had very, very typical male orgasms, which most men will describe them as being like centered in the genital area and like 5 to 10 seconds. That was the norm for me. Emotionally, I had bouts of depression, anxiety. I struggled to connect with my kids at times. Definitely had a lot of issues in my marriage. A lot of frustration, anger. I didn't know how to allow my anger to come up. I didn't know how to voice anger in a healthy way, so I just didn't voice it at all. No motivation at all. I had a lot of family trauma cycles, and I didn't know how to process trauma. So I had events in my childhood, and the result from that was this emotional baggage that I didn't know how to work through. I wanted to work through it, but I didn't even know if it was possible to work through because I hadn't really met anyone that had I hadn't really met anyone with a background quite like mine, with all of the factors that I had. So I didn't really put myself out there, and I wouldn't really trust many people to really open up and share what all I had experienced. So I didn't, there was a lot of emotional issues that I never could get to the bottom of. And spiritually, I had kind of come to the end of my rope with most things spiritual. I wanted answers. From the religious sect that I grew up in as a child, I saw a lot of contradiction. Just, and I was raised in a Christian home, but there's in the New Testament that you read about people being healed, and I was told that that doesn't happen. And which, if you're watching this, is total bullshit. It does happen, and it happens very much like it's talked about in the Bible. But there are a lot of contradictions that I saw in the Bible that I just could not reconcile. I had a lot of religious, Christian programming, a lot of guilt, and a lot of shame that needed to be worked through. I had one more. I had adrenal fatigue, very, very bad. And that is one of the things that triggered me to kind of to write in response to some things that I've seen on Instagram, because I saw a doctor post that ice baths are not good if you have adrenal fatigue. And what I have to say to that is, lovingly and respectfully, that's bullshit. Ice baths are one of the ways that, or one of the means that I use to learn how to switch between my sympathetic and my parasympathetic, my fight flight response and my rest and digest response. So if you're seeing the doctor on Instagram talking about that, it's absolute nonsense. I will say that if you do not have someone that's really teaching you how to work with that, it could aggravate things a little bit. But here's the reality. The reality is that if we want to figure out something, we will figure it out. And if we are dedicated to figuring it out, the answers will come. They will present themselves. And yeah, so a little bit of caveat there. So in kind of closing out this video, most all of my issues were related to trauma, and they were related to emotional imbalances and emotional underdevelopment. So if you're watching this and you've had some traumatic events in your life, I want you to know that you can definitely resolve and find peace. I don't really use the word forgiveness as much anymore, because at this point in my life, I've gotten to a point that forgiveness to me, at this point, what I have is understanding. And with that understanding comes a lot of compassion for myself and for people who in the past I would have felt like had wronged me. And I have compassion for myself in situations where I feel like I had wronged other people. And the reason why I am going to coach on a limited basis and in a very specific manner, and I will post more about this in the upcoming days, is this. If we don't learn how to understand our trauma, and more so than the trauma, the emotional disconnect that is formed from trauma, if we don't learn how to work with that, and we don't learn the opposite side, which is a more peaceful side and a more loving side, then we're going to keep repeating the same cycles over and over again. And this is what drives many people to get help, is you keep repeating the cycles over and over again, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger until we do get help. Some people don't get help. Some people end up with addictions and they end up in the grave early. And I have a lot to live for. I have a beautiful wife, I have beautiful kids, I have beautiful animals, and a lot of friends. And I didn't want to check out. I didn't want to die early. I wanted to find peace and health, and I did. So if we don't break those cycles, if we don't learn what's at the root of a trauma, which is an emotional, um, it's like an emotional tornado that happens, then we'll keep repeating that cycle. Um, the cool thing is when we get to the bottom of that, we learn how to develop the healthy side of our emotional life. And that's where the good stuff is. And a lot of us um, don't experience that because we come from families that never knew how to develop that within themselves. So they didn't know how to teach us how to deal with that. And even more so than the emotional healing that takes place, we learn how to use something really fun, and that's our imagination. And though I don't believe the Bible is infallible, though I don't believe in the Bible the way I was taught to believe in the Bible, there's a lot of really good stuff in the Bible. There's a lot of things in the Bible that I don't jive with. I don't. If you're watching this, I do not believe the gay people go to hell. I do not hate gay people. I'm not going to go on and on about that, but there's a lot of stuff that is relatively recently added to the Bible that wasn't always there. But this I understand about the Bible. The Bible is a guide to who we are and to awakening to who we really are. And the questions that I had spiritually about the Bible all make sense now. And I had to go down a lot of rabbit holes to get to where I am now. And it's worth it. If you're watching this and you're wondering if emotional healing is possible, yes, it is. I had to go off the beaten path. I did traditional therapy and it helped me build trust with the therapist. It helped me. If I hadn't have done traditional therapy, it was actually EFT, with a counselor, I wouldn't have built up enough trust in someone else and in myself enough to get help outside of the system. Traditional therapy is good, but it's very slow. And I needed something where I was able to take greater responsibility in my healing process and journey. And that's what I did. And in the process of my own journey, I found some really cool ways to help people not only resolve family trauma and histories of trauma, but I learned how to help people develop the good emotions and how to use your body and your mind to create those. And I didn't even know it was possible. And it's a very simple process. It does require effort. It does require consistency, but it's exciting, and I want to share it with other people who want to heal emotionally. When it comes to the physical side of healing, that's something that it's a process, and a lot of people are used to a linear approach. In other words, you go see someone, they give you something, you take it, and you really don't get healed. You really just mask the symptom. And I've done that. I did that for years, and it didn't work. And the more I did that, the worse things got. And a lot of the health issues that I had were related to, it was an autoimmune. There were a lot of autoimmune issues and disorders. And it was totally possible for me to heal them. I can't say that it's possible for everyone because other people might not put in the energy, the effort, and they simply might not think it's even possible. And if that's the case, that's okay. But if I can do it, there's a good chance you can do it. And so I will be putting out more information in the next few days as soon as I get my plans anchored down. And I will begin helping people work with what some people in the spiritual community call the root. The root is that center that is programmed in the first 8 years of life. And when we have some inconsistencies, when we have trauma, when we have events that don't make sense and that we're not able to resolve, it affects the rest of our life until we resolve those. And I see a lot of people doing really amazing work in the spiritual community with the root. And I see a lot of people who could do even more, but they're doing their own thing. For me, I feel like it's so pivotal that without getting that cleared up, we're going to keep repeating the same cycles. And listen, some people call it inner work, some people call it shadow work. It should not take years. And I also hear some people say that you're going to keep dealing with this over and over again. Yes and no. I deal with nuances of things I've dealt with in the past. In other words, I see new angles of what I've dealt with in the past. But at this point, it's always in a positive manner. If you keep going through a dark night of the soul, if you keep going through these heavy, dense emotions over and over again, you do not have a proper exit plan. And that is what I learned to do really well. I developed in myself a very, very good exit plan. And I learned how to help others do the same. And so if this is interesting to you and you want to reach out, email me at thelifechosen444 at gmail.com. Have a good day.